Look at this gorgeous bird bath. It's a lotus flower. A whole aisle of gorgeous porcelain ceramic planters. It's been the best place that I've found in terms of price point. The one that I have in my garden, I actually started from bare root and it's done. So this is the most wonderful time of the year for gardeners. I'll start with 4 and leave a couple for someone else. But first, I want to put up these new brackets that we picked up and these hanging baskets to see what they'll look like. Hi, it's Steph, and it's still pretty chilly here in the Northeast. And while I can't do much gardening, I can get ready for the gardening season by going out and shopping for some essentials. So let's head out and see what we can find. Today we are doing some shopping for the spring here at Ocean State Job Lot, which is a local to me retailer here in the Northeast. It's a great place to stock up on some spring gardening stuff. Really reasonable prices, so I thought that we would do that together. And if you still need some seeds, their seeds here, the burpee ones, are 40% off. I'm actually going to grab some sugar snap peas, which are a cool season crop, to put out in the garden for a little garden snack. But let's go ahead and take a look around and see what they have and pick up a few things. Here are some of the bare roots that they have in stock. These here are perennial, the astilbe, and most of the astilbe I have in my garden are from bare root, so it's a great affordable way to start them. You get 2 roots for $5.99. I have this variety here, the chocolate kiss, and some of this pink one I believe as well, but really pretty. They do like a moist soil that is well draining and fertilizer, so if you fertilize them in late winter, early spring, they will bloom beautifully for you. Clematis, and they have a few varieties here. The President, which I have in my garden, it's a really vigorous, beautiful, large purple bloom. This one here is City of Lion, and Nellie Mosier, which is also a really popular variety. Dr. Ruppel, and some daylilies. Daylilies also are really easy bare root plants, so if you like daylilies, they're a great way to purchase them. They have the popular Stella d'Oro, which is the yellow variety, and this one here, which has a dark throat, El Desperado, Once in a Lifetime, and Dress Pink. And those you get, how many? 2 roots for $5.99. And ferns, so if you have a shady spot, they have some leatherwood fern and some Christmas fern, and you get 1 root for $5.99. Now these look like they'll get pretty large. If they're similar to the cinnamon fern, which I actually have growing wild in my woodland area, and let's see how big this one gets. 12 to 24 inches in height and 1 to 2 feet in width. And the leatherwood gets, let's see, even bigger, 24 to 48 inches in height and 1 to 2 feet in width. Rudbeckia, another classic garden perennial. You get 2 roots for $5.99. That seems to be the price on all of these. Another really great plant to grow from bare root is hosta. Now, if you have a shady garden, this is a great way to add a lot of color with just foliage. But I will warn you that hosta is a bit of deer salad. So if you have a lot of deer in your garden, they tend to chew on your hosta, and they get quite unsightly. But they do send up some blooms. At some point through the season, you'll get a really tall shoot with these bell-shaped blooms in light purple and white, and the pollinators love it. And they also have hollyhocks, which hollyhocks are a quintessential cottage garden flower. And they, grown by bare root, they could bloom for you the first year. Typically they're a biennial, which means you start them 1 year from seed, and they'll grow all of their roots and leaves in year 1, and then by year 2 you'll get these beautiful blooms. But because these are already bare root, these are probably already a 2nd year plant, which means that if you planted them, you would get blooms this year. They're beautiful. Look at those ruffly blooms. So pretty and pretty tall. So you want to offer them some support with either staking or planting them up against a protected location like the side of your house or even a fence. 48 to 72 inches in height. Elephant ears, a pretty tropical foliage plant. They have really large heart-shaped leaves. You get 1 bulb, but this is a massive bulb. Look at that. It's like a softball size. And lily of the valley, which is a bit of an invasive plant, but some people really love them. They have decorative foliage and these little bell-shaped flowers that are really fragrant. And they usually grow in woodland areas. They like part shade to full shade. Pretty short bloomer. They bloom in the summer. And liatris, this is a great perennial. The pollinators love it. It's a really great companion plant for things like Rudbeckia. They actually look really pretty together, and they bloom in my garden around the same time, at some point in mid-July. It's a nice tall spike type flower, fuzzy texture. It starts blooming from the top down. And some more perennials down the bottom here. I think these bare root perennials are a really great buy and a great affordable way to grow a landscape. So this one here is a very pretty spike type perennial. It's Nephophia, also known as red hot poker. Typically you see them in hot colors like oranges, corals, reds, and yellows. And they sort of have like a gradient or ombre effect in the way that they bloom, the color of them. The hummingbirds absolutely love the tubular shaped petals on these blooms. And what's cool about this perennial is that even when it's not in bloom, you still have some interest because the bottom looks like a tuft of ornamental grass. So it really has kind of a twofold look with these in the garden. Really offers a lot of interest. They grow to be 24 to 48 inches in height and 2 to 3 feet in width. And they like a moist but well-draining soil and full sun. And here you get 3 roots for $4.99, which is actually a great price. I usually like to pick these by the weight of the container or the packaging. If it feels pretty weighty, then it, you know, that the bulbs or the roots are not too dehydrated and that they're more likely to be viable. But I've had good luck with bare root plants. And some phlox. Now this looks like a woodland phlox. Let's see what it says in terms of light. If it's full sun, then it would be a garden phlox. And if it's part sun, it looks like it would be full sun to part sun. So it does appear to be a garden phlox. And it gets to be 24 to 36 inches in height and 1 to 2 feet in width. Sometimes woodland phlox looks like this and it likes more of a part shade location. But this one looks to be a purple garden phlox. It says great for borders, pollinator friendly, and it likes full sun to part shade. Very pretty. You get 2 roots for $5.99. And peonies, which are a beautiful heirloom type perennial that can last years and years. Now I will tell you that from bare root, they do take a while to really get going, and how many blooms you get depends on how many eyes that the bare root will have. This one tells you that you get 1 root and it has 2/3 of an eye. So you might get 1 bloom out of it this season, but each year and as it gets larger, you'll get more blooms. And this, sometimes you can see, depending on the packaging, when they're clear, you can see the eyes, but this one's green, so it's harder to tell. All right, so they have this pink one, Bowl of Beauty, which is a real pretty one. Festiva Maxima, which is a white with a little bit of red. And my favorite, personally, the Sarah Bernhardt, which is a gorgeous light pink, very fragrant. And look how ruffly these are. Such beautiful. They almost look like roses. And Carl Rosenfield, which is a bit of a fuchsia reddish pink. Now sometimes newer gardeners might get surprised when they start seeing ants on the head of the peony bloom before they open up. That's totally normal. It's part of the process. They're just there feeding on the nectar. Some dahlias. Now these here in our zone 6B, 7A are annual, so they do need to be dug up and stored for the winter once we get our first hard frost. So they can be a little bit of work because you do have to protect them, but they are beautiful for late season color. Here in my area, they start blooming late July and they go all the way in through the end of October when we get our first hard frost. But they have some pretty colors here. Look at this one. This looks like one that I have called Rocco. It's called Touch of Magic, and you get that pretty orange, what kind of looks like a water lily type and a ball type in that burgundy purple red. And that one's a pretty one too. So lots of different options here in terms of dahlias. These look like singles, and they might be a little bit shorter, which would make them great for a flower border. You can even incorporate these into your flower beds. 24 to 36 inches in height and 3 to 5 inches in width. Oh, they even have caladiums, which these have been kind of difficult to find in the last couple of years, but they're back this year. I've seen them at the Home Depot and now here. And these are a shade foliage plant, very pretty, heart-shaped leaves. This looks like a mix, so you get different colored foliage, and they like part to full shade. Long lasting, perfect for containers, and great in borders. Here's a couple more annual bulbs. They have the cannas, which are really pretty tropical blooms, very tall, but they look really pretty on a patio or by a pool. And then some more dahlia mixes. And this is a perennial here, Euringium or sea holly, very pretty. The one that I have in my garden, I actually started from bare root and it's done really well. They do get pretty tall, some varieties, and so they need some support. This one here gets 24 to 36 inches, so not too bad. And they like full sun in a very well draining soil that leans dry. It says that these are excellent cut flowers. Very pretty. And here's what I've come here for, to stock up on my fertilizers for the season. I found that Ocean State Job Lot has the best price on the Espoma Tones fertilizers, and they have these large bags of Plant Tone 27-pound bag for $24.99. And I'm also going to get some Hollytone. I have found that these two fertilizers, the Hollytone and the Plant Tone, pretty much take care of everything in my garden for the season. So the Plant Tone, I will use on all of my perennials and any shrubs that can't take Hollytone, such as boxwood and arborvitae. And the Hollytone here I use on all of the other shrubs. These are for like acid-loving plants and things like hydrangeas, camellias, rhododendrons, azaleas, blueberries even do really well with Hollytone. Here's a look at some of the other fertilizers that they have in stock. I'm actually going to grab some of that Grow fertilizer because I use it on all of the seedlings that I'm growing under the grow lights. I fertilize them about once a week on Friday, Fertilizer Friday, that's how I remember, but they have quite a few. They have the Garden Lime, Garden Food, Bulb Tone, so lots of different ones. I usually pick up a bag of these so that when I do my fall planting of bulbs, I have it on hand because then it gets harder to find as the season goes on. But you can even use this for summer planted bulbs, things like gladioli, lilies. So they list here anemones, peonies. So if you were to buy some of those bare root peonies, you could add some of this to the planting hole to get those roots going and growing. Bone meal is another great thing to use for that as well. And they have some flower tone, but I find that the Plant Tone and the Hollytone pretty much cover all of these. Like for example, evergreens, you can use a lot of times just the Hollytone. And even for roses, they have the Rose Tone, which I do use and I really like. But Rose Tone can even be used on hydrangeas. So try to multi-purpose your fertilizers if possible. That way you don't have to buy too many different varieties. But see, the small bag of the Plant Tone is $12.99 and you get 8 pounds in that bag. And so you get 3 times the amount for only double the price when you get the large bag. So I find that $24.99 for the 27 pounds is a better deal. But these smaller bags are just easier to manage. Blood meal is also great to provide nitrogen to your soil when planting. They have chicken manure, tomato tone, which will be great for vegetables. It looks like peppers and tomatoes. And my very favorite, which I wish that they sold in a large bag, is the biotone. Now, anytime that I plant something new in my garden, I add some of this to the planting hole to really give it a great start and to get those roots going and growing. Promotes bigger blooms, roots, and it's for planting flowers, trees, shrubs, and vegetables. So I'm going to stock up and get a few bags of these because they are $9.99 for a bag, which is a really great price. And here's a closer look at the Espoma Grow Fertilizer. This is a liquid fertilizer that I use on my seedlings. Once they get a couple of sets of true leaves, I will start doing this about once a week, usually on Fridays so that I remember. And what I do is I take a full cap of this and I pour it into a 2-gallon watering can. Then I fill up the watering can with water to really dilute down this fertilizer. Because the seedlings are still fairly young, I don't want to give it to them at full strength, so I really water it down. And then I go ahead and give everything a feed. $9.99 is actually a great price for this fertilizer. The least that I've paid for it is around $15 on Amazon. So for $9.99, I find that that's a great buy. And they have this bloom fertilizer, which I've never tried before. I usually use the Alaska bloom fertilizer, which I really like, but I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of these to try out this season. And look at that. They even have an indoor houseplant food for $7.50. So I'm gonna try that also. All right, so I'm gonna grab 4, but of course, I'm always going to think I need more. And I actually do go through quite a bit of this in my garden throughout the season. So I'll start with 4 and leave a couple for someone else. And if I decide to grab a couple more, I will go to a different store so I don't wipe them out. There we go. This has been the best place that I have found for some of these U-posts. They have the 5-footers for $5 and the 4-footers for $4.50. These are at least half of the price of what I found them for at the Home Depot. And I like to use these with floral netting on them to put in my raised bed garden to support taller plants, things like zinnias and dahlias, for example. And I did stock up last year, but I'm still a few short, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab a few more of these 5-foot posts. So much fun spring stuff showing up. Look, they still have some planters that are still wrapped that they're going to put out, but this is the best time to find what you're looking for because they'll have the most selection earlier on in the season. Look at this beautiful fluted green ceramic planter. They have them in 2 sizes, the larger one and one that's a little bit shorter. So they'll look really nice planted up near each other. I didn't see a price on them, but I really like that color. And then these huge terracotta rolled rim planters that are very heavy. There's also no price on them. They're by Pennington, made in Italy. Probably a 20 to 24 inch planter. About 22 would be my best guess. Maybe even a 24. It's large. And then look at these reed fencing that you can use along a chain link for some additional privacy. Look at that. It's 4 feet height, 8 foot length, and they're $9.99 for a roll. It's a really interesting item. And then they also have these planters here that are really pretty in different sizes. They're like a metal. So I would say that these are more suited for indoors because you could put a house plant in it. You'd need a liner because there's no drain holes inside. And they're white with this gold rim on a black stand in varying sizes. Another one that would look really pretty clustered in a group. And the classic whiskey barrel planter, 20 inch for $15.99. I have some raspberries and some berries growing in some of these in my garden. And look at this, a whole aisle of gorgeous porcelain ceramic planters in different colors. So if you have a specific color aesthetic that you prefer in your garden, you're sure to find a planter that you'll like here. Look at this. I find them really affordable for these types of planters. Usually they range from about $8 up to $20 for more of the common sizes. And then of course, the larger the planter, the more expensive, but really beautiful shades of green and cobalt blue, light blue. And then there's even some of this kind of mustard brown color. And on this side, they have some more. Turn you around slowly here. See the tan. There's some in this off-white color, the swirly pattern. And then they have this one here, which is really pretty and sort of a diamond pattern. Also lots and lots of terracotta, and they have been the best place that I've found in terms of price point for terracotta pots. Look at this, they have the pots and the saucers. So this one here, they're all made in Italy. This is a 10-inch planter for $4. Where are you gonna find a 10-inch terracotta planter for $4? And then they have these bowls, which I actually really like, and I grow succulents in them. It is about a 12-inch diameter is my best guess, $6. Really pretty. And then this one here is, let's see, might be like a 6 to 8-inch planter, $2.50, probably a 6-inch. Just a really great price point on their terracotta inventory. And then all of the saucers are down at the end here. Look at that. Let's check out the prices on these. So this saucer is $3 and it's a 10-inch. So that's probably the more expensive one. And then this here is a 7.5-inch for $1.50. So great place for terracotta pots and saucers. These here look like there may be a 12-inch planter, $8. And then there's one size even bigger that's maybe like a 14-inch, and that one is $12. They have lots of plastic planters too, which are pretty lightweight and easier to manage, especially once they're filled with soil. And again, they have them in multiple colors. They have small ones and larger ones. You can see here. There's some in a sage green and gray, tan, and white. And they have some pretty ones down the end there. Let's go take a closer look. Some pretty neutral colors too. This gray one that has this diamond pattern kind of has a stone look appearance. Maybe like a 14, 15-inch planter, $12. Not bad. And then there's this one here that also has kind of like a stone look. $16. Again, it looks to be about a 15, 16-inch if I had to guess. Nice and lightweight. They also have the gray ones at the bottom there. And some of these white ones. They have that medallion there. Very pretty. A lot of these look like they're porcelain, but they're actually plastic, which is great because it makes them look a bit higher end, right? Here at the bottom, they have these large dark charcoal gray ones, maybe like an 18-inch planter. And this one is $25, but there are no drain holes in these. So something you would want to do when you get home and get ready to plant them, make sure that you add some drain holes so that your soil will drain. You don't want to risk having your plant sitting in water and killing them, right? $9 for that one. It's a little bit smaller, maybe a 12-inch, But great price on these planters. And these here are in this like off-white color, and they kind of have like a stone appearance to them, even though they're plastic, which makes them lightweight. And they have different sizes. So lots of options for planters. It's flowers and garden. It's like a tin. It almost looks like an umbrella holder that you could put by the front door. Very pretty. It looks like it would be for indoors though. And then there's these sort of galvanized tin looking raised planters. These could look pretty outside. I just don't know how long they would last in terms of the material, but they are very cute. Lots of coconut core liners. These are by Better Homes and Gardens, which at one point were sold at Walmart, $7. And this is for the window box style. And then they have 24-inch liners, and then these round 12-inch ones. And they also have the hanging baskets, these wire hanging baskets. They have different ones, and they're pretty. Look at them. They're very nice and simple. Once you have them full of flowers, you won't even see really the basket by the end of the season. This one here is black, and then they also have white ones. So this is a 12-inch basket for $6, and it comes with the liner. That one has a swirl pattern. This one has a little bit of a butterfly, a swirl, and then this one is a square 12-inch basket. Looks like it has a little flower motif on it. Let's see if we can check that out. That's what that looks like for $8. And then they have a square one with kind of like a heart swirl pattern for $8 as well. And that one there is $6, and it's 12 inches. It has that butterfly. And then they have a 30-inch trough wire basket with cocoa liner that you can hang on a fence, on the side of a deck maybe, or even as a window box. And those are $12. This one here is a 24-inch trough for $10. Look at that. Some more liners. You have a 16-inch cocoa basket liner for $5. And then there's a 14-inch for $4, and those are 14-inch as well. So if you're looking for replacement liners, they have some here. And the 12-inch one, round, for $3. Look at these planters. These are hanging baskets. I missed out on these last year. I had gone a little bit too late in the season when I realized I needed new hanging baskets. And they had one hanging around, but I needed two. And they have them again this year. These hanging baskets are a little bit more substantial than the ones we just looked at. It says they're handcrafted in the UK, Spanish hanging basket. And let me show you if I can manage it with one hand. Let me zoom out here. Look at this. So this is the bottom piece, and then you hook this top piece on, and you hang this from your hook. Look at that. So pretty. And these are $14.99 each. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab 2 of these this year. These cone ones here were similar to the ones that I had for about 3 seasons, and they finally gave out on me. Mine were like a basket raffia material that had a plastic lining, and these are just the black wrought iron with the coconut core, and they're 12 inches for $8. Lots of metal wall trellises. I actually bought one here several years ago that I used for a while with a clematis. It's actually similar to this one here. It's a bronze color. And this one is 84 inches, and it's $25. And then they have this one here with a crisscross pattern, 71 inches. It's a little thinner too. 15 inches across for $15. And this one here, $20. These are great for growing, like I said, clematis, a climbing rose that you might have leaning on a deck or a fence. Gives a little more support and a bit of a visual interest, right, with a decorative element. So this one has a scroll pattern, and it's 66 inches in height and 22-inch width. $18 for that one. And then these here get a little bit smaller as you go down. I think my mom had a similar one to this here. $15 for this one, 60 inches in height. And they have some green ones as well. And some tomato cages down the end there. A-frame. You can use them for tomatoes. You can use them for cucumbers. These plant supports are a great price point here. Look at this, $5. These are for your peonies, which are just starting to pop through the soil now with their eyes. And they have big, beautiful blooms, which means that they'll need a little bit of support to stay upright. So they have this one here that's 24-inch grow through. So the circle is 24 inches and it has 16-inch legs, and the same on this one, $5 for these. Now this one here is just a circle with no grow through grid. I prefer the grow through grid. I feel like it's a little bit more sturdy, but that one without the grid is $3. And then they have these single stem plant supports. I have a friend who really likes these for her dahlias. I haven't tried them yet, so I can't speak to them, but that one's 36 inches. So the 24 inch is $1.50, and the 36-inch one also looks to be $1.50. And look at this, a Titan Peony Ring by Tiller & Rowe, which is the house brand here, for $10. And that one is like a grow-through decorative type trellis. These supports are great. I actually just bought a bunch of them to put in front of my little lime hydrangea hedge to support them. Because the blooms get so large, when it rains, they have a tendency to flop. So I bought some of these this year to help support those. But even these smaller ones are great for perennials that you have that have a tendency to get a little bit floppy, especially if they're in a windy area. Things that grow a bit taller like coneflowers, etc. These are great rings for things like that. $6 for those. They're 36-inch leg, 18-inch circle, and it's a double ring. So there's the top and bottom ring, which offers even more support. Fun decorative items for the garden, a terracotta thermometer / clock for $5. This one here in that gray stone look, and then a more utilitarian style one for $12.99. And then they also have lots of metal iron items like shepherd's hooks, hooks that you can put on a post to hang a basket from. This is sort of the idea of what I used to put up my hanging baskets. Flower box brackets for a deck. So they're shepherd's hooks. Let's see how much they are. So they have some tall ones here. They are, what length? Height rather. Just 84. So they have the single 84-inch shepherd's hook for $12, and then there is the double shepherd's hook at the top there for $15. They even have these hooks that you hang on your trees that you can hang baskets on. Look at that. It looks upside down, but I buy these for birdhouses that hang, the ones on the chains, and I hang them on the branch of the tree, and then you can hang your birdhouse there. This is also great for hummingbird feeders. And these are $2, and it's an 18-inch branch extender S hook. These are actually the ones that I have. Still only $4, and look at them. So cute. Nice and substantial. They've lasted a really long time. Like I said, about 5 seasons, but I thought it was these smaller ones, but it wasn't. It was this larger one, and then they're the exact same price. But I am going to grab some to replace them, and what I think I'm going to do is grab these simple ones here that look like this, because the planter that I'm buying is a little bit more ornate on top, and I think that this will look a bit nicer with that being more streamlined, since the planter already has enough of the decorative scrolling going on. Here's the top of the planter, and this is what the hook would look like. Yeah, I think that's gonna look nice. Versus this one that I think is going to be a little too swirly and busy, at least for my taste. And look at these fun planters. They're the head style planters. Pretty good size too for $19.99. They have that one there in a bronze color, and this one here in a stone finish. Same price. And then these that look like fairies for $19.99 as well. And then this one is 13.5 inches, resting head planter for $19.99. They have some obelisks, these taller ones here for $25, and then they have these shorter ones here, which also look really pretty just to have like a trailing plant inside a planter. You can have something that's kind of climbing upward, something like a Thumbergia or a climbing black-eyed Susan. So this one here is $18 for the smaller one. Just to have a bit of a vertical element in the middle of a planter, these would look really pretty. Look at this gorgeous bird bath. It's a lotus flower. It is porcelain, so you know, pretty breakable, but I suppose no different than a concrete bird bath. The base there, so beautiful. Look at this. It's $40. It's the only one I see, so my guess is that they're probably going to get some more. And these were just the first few that arrived. Really pretty. Usually they have these decorative bird baths in different colors, like the cobalt blue and the green, but I've never seen this lotus flower one, so it must be new. Let me share a little secret with you. This is my favorite watering can in all of the land. I bought one here a couple of years ago and it is amazing. Mine is more of an avocado green and this one's more of a sage green, which I prefer, but it works well. It is a 2-gallon watering can. It's plastic, so it's nice and lightweight. And what I like about it is the nozzle. It has a nice gradual nozzle with a bit of a curve. So when I water my plants, it's a nice gentle stream of water. Unlike those that the water comes out really hard and it kind of makes all the soil in your container hop out and make a mess. I don't find that that is the case with this one, and I really love it. So if you have an Ocean State job lot near you, this watering can is a good one to add to your collection. Do y'all remember that commercial for Staples years back where it was the most wonderful time of the year when parents go school supply shopping? Well, I feel like I have the same thing going on with my carriage here, except for gardening supplies. So this is the most wonderful time of the year for gardeners. All right, I gotta get these out of the car because things are gonna get pretty stinky in here, but it's great stuff for our plants. So we do what we gotta do. So I picked up all my fertilizers and some other things, but first I wanna put up these new brackets that we picked up and these hanging baskets to see what they'll look like. So these are the hangers or the brackets that I had mentioned had gotten pretty rusty over the last several years. I really do like the scroll detail on them, but they're a little ornate for the planters that I just purchased, the hanging baskets, and they're also pretty rusty. So I'm gonna take them down and I'll probably end up wire brushing them and giving them some Rust-Oleum spray paint and just keeping them for a later date. And for now, we'll just replace them with these sleek ones that will look nice with the hanging basket. So I'm gonna grab a ladder and George's drill and we'll get them installed. I was gonna go get a tape measure and a marker so that I can mark off the holes, but first I'm gonna see if the existing holes would work. So this is where the old hanger was, but these planters or these hanging baskets are a little bit longer. So how does that look? I think that looks about right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with using one of the existing holes. And that way, I don't have to measure anything. I really like the way that these look, and the installation was really easy because I just used the pre-existing drill holes from the last brackets that we took out, and I like the scale of them, and it's still too cold for us to be able to plant anything pretty in them, but in a couple of months we'll do that, and I think these are going to look really nice in this area this season. So let me know, what are you up to these days? Are you able to plant in your garden? Is it still too cold where you are? It's a great time to stock up on things like pots, planters, fertilizers. So I hope that you enjoyed coming shopping with me today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.